Welcome to the Marshall Pruitt Podcast and your week in IndyCar listener Q&A show. We got a little bit of a break, y'all, coming out of a pretty crazy start to the year. Lots of busyness, but also, thankfully, for everybody involved in the series, especially those who work on the cars, make the series happen, administer and run, folks who've just been going non-stop for well more than a month. So happy for all of them. And also, I am smiling like a fool because indeed, first weekend off and I don't know how long. So hope y'all indeed are able to take a quick breath here. Next week, getting on a plane, I think on Friday to head out to good old St. Louis, WWTR, aka Gateway, for some Sunday night oval racing, and then hopping on a plane the next morning to Buffalo, driving down to Watkins Glen. We'll be there from Monday through, I think, I got a 6 a.m. flight out Saturday morning, fly out to good old Road America IndyCar, and then come home after that. So yeah, 3 tracks in whatever that is, 9, 10, 11 days. Pretty lucky guy. So why don't we say a very, very huge thanks to y'all for the questions you sent in, of which there are many, almost 2,000 words, and yeah, a dozen or two questions in here for sure, all assembled by our friend Jerry Sudduth. Great to see Jerry and his wife, and so many of you at Indianapolis, a little Pruitt Day meetup on race morning, which was just phenomenal. And also, I guess if there's a perk of being a member of that group, friend Ralph Hibbard saw him at the Indy Memorabilia show and said, hey, bought a bunch of stuff from an estate sale, I believe he said, and part of it, which was a bit of a surprise, 2,000 Mario Andretti silver cards, trading cards from like 1993 or whatever. And so he said, do you think the Pruitt would want some of them? To which I said, yes. So got a stack of those and gave those away. So got to see everybody and leave the group with some cool retro Mario Andretti cards, all courtesy of our friend Ralph. So that was a lot of fun. But thanks to Jerry, thanks to everybody, Christy Perdana, Matt Philpott, just the whole entire group for showing up and being so awesome and so supportive. And with all that said, let's say a big thank you as well to our friends at the Justice Brothers, makers of Mighty Amazing automotive chemicals, lubricants, and cleaners, justicebrothers.com. Been with the show 9 years now, 9 years. So yeah, in this 10th anniversary of ours, just great to have them with us and continuing with us. And then, of course, torontomotorsports.com. All kinds of modern racing memorabilia, hats, t-shirts, stickers, books, models, you name it. Pay them a visit, torontomotorsports.com, and take home some fun. And I'm determined, I am determined here during the couple of days of trying to catch my breath to indeed get a few things up on the often continually ignored thepruittstore.com site. So yeah, we'll see if I can actually make that happen. But anyways, let's get rolling with the show. We're going to start things off with Daryl Finch. He says, can we take a moment to thank Little Dave, that being Davey Malukas, for volunteering to play the role of the cartoon anvil and giving us some sliver of hope that it may not already be Alex Palou's championship. In all seriousness, there's been a lot of talk about the Malukas to Penske move, and I was just wondering if that mistake hitting the back of Alex Palou at Detroit, coupled with a stronger drive from Will Power, could potentially quell that a little bit. Great question posed in a very funny way, Daryl. Thank you. And for those of you who know, I'm a glass half full guy, tend to see things at a pretty comical light, if not snarky and sarcastic light. So any questions that have some element of humor, even if they're a little sassy, those are going to be my favorite. So, Davey Malukas. Here's the thing we know. It isn't said out loud by the Foyt team or the Penske team, but we know this. Said this on the podcast many times, written it many times on Racer.com. Davey is signed to Penske. This isn't a question. It's not a speculation. I know that to be a fact. Davey signed to Penske. Him being farmed, if you want to put it that way, out to Foyt for the year in what was their second car. Stingray Robb drove this last year. Davey being placed in that. You can look at that, and we're going to get to the question here of whether hitting Palou might have changed anything, or is Will Power's surging in the number 12 Verizon Chevy going to complicate things. But just need to understand the question here of, could Davey go and take that 12 car from Will, and might that be a potential? He is signed to Penske, so we need to just accept this. When he might move into a Team Penske entry, that's the question. But this is not a subject of, could Davey be signed and brought up to the big team? Already been signed. You go, well, okay, I don't believe you. All right, cool. That's pretty normal. But let's just look at a couple of other things for those who need more than just me saying this is a fact. Who's the primary sponsor in the car for most of the year to date? AJ Foyt Racing. That's what was on the side pods. AJ Foyt Racing. Why would the team put their own name on the side of the car? Because there's no need to put a sponsor name on the car, because it's being paid for by Team Penske, by Roger Penske. This second car, along with this technical alliance with the team, just overstating the obvious. I don't believe this is any major revelation. When the team's name is the primary business being listed on it, printed in large graphics on the side pods, it tells you one of two things is happening. The team is paying for it. Foyt isn't paying for anything. Or someone else is. Knowing that Davey's signed to Penske, you now understand, aha, there's no actual coming out of pocket by the Foyt team. This is just in lieu of running truly bare side pods. Got it. Then what happens here coming into the month of May? Indy 500 for sure. I'm forgetting whether it was on the car for the Indy GP. That was a move to a new livery. So going away from that kind of burned orange and white and black livery with the AJ Foyt Racing on the side pods to Clarience Technology. Not Clarence Technology, which I thought it was at first, which sounded like some sort of like 1980s wig system for men from like Houston or something like that. But not Clarence Technology, but Clarience Technology. And interesting, and you read about that and you look at that and realize that has been an associate sponsor with Team Penske. Believe Clarence Technology was on the engine cover of Joseph Newgarden's Indy 500 winning entry in 2024 for sure. The spine that runs along the engine cover that has had Clarence Technology. So this is a Penske sourced supplied sponsor for the 500, which is awesome to see. But again, just kind of builds here, Daryl, back to the point of Davey signed to the team. Penske's paying for the whole thing. Penske got Clarience to step up, which is awesome, and take the car. But this is indeed the repurposing of a Penske sponsor. So knowing that he's part of the Penske employment family, there's no doubt at some point in time Davey's going to be moving up. Will Power at the age of 44, we just know that his runway there as a full-time driver has a bit of a limited window. So to answer this and cover this off and move on, Davey hitting the back of Palou would have not changed anything in terms of it was a sure thing and guaranteed until that happened, and oops, now it isn't. Wouldn't have been the case. Would just say, though, taking a very honest look, it would have just been a reminder that if you were deciding on 2026 and whether it is time to replace Will, knowing that he's in the final year of his existing contract with Penske, if through 7 races you were to look at the body of work with the AJ Foyt Racing team, with the Team Penske technical assistants, race engineer applied on Davy's car, the really talented James Schnabel, who was with Santino Ferrucci last year, where they finished 10th in the championship. You see that Davy indeed is now sitting 11th in the standings. Santino was 10th until they had the big points removal for the driver ballast illegality at Detroit. But you could look here and say, hey, cars are sitting 10th and 11th or 12th. That's pretty darn good for the Foyt team. Here's the thing where if we're having to compare who's ready to step into that 12 and demote Will, whether it's demote him out of the team altogether or who knows, maybe they swap seats and Will goes to that second Foyt Penske assisted car, would just say this. Let me read Will's finishes for you for the year, knowing that he was hit from behind and taken out in the first race, first lap, third turn. So he finished 26th to start the year. A huge hole to dig out of. From there, he has finished 6th, 5th, 3rd. Indy 500 wasn't amazing, was 16th for the team there. Granted, top finishing Penske car there at Indy. And then 4th here at Detroit. He has been Team Penske's top finisher in 5 out of the 7 races this year. Newgarden was top finisher at St. Pete to open the year, again, where Will was crashed out in the first lap. Scott McLaughlin was the top performer for the team, top finisher for them, taken 3rd at Barber. But just saying, 7 races, Will Power has been P1 within the Penske family at the finish line 5 out of 7 times. And I mentioned all those 5th, 6th, 3rds, etc., 4th. Davey Malukas, new team, totally get that, new everything. Huge finish at the Indy 500 to 2nd place. But let me read to you Davey's finishes so far this year. 13th, 18th, 17th, 16th, 23rd, 2nd, and 14th. A single finish inside the top 10, and after that, the best is a 13th. What does all that tell you? Here's what it tells me. Davey clearly has wicked talent, wicked potential. At least through 7 races this season, he is not ready to step up to Team Penske. Not by any stretch. And the guy that he would be potentially replacing is sitting 5th in the standings and has been Penske's top, most consistent performer in a crazy year where they have yet to win a race. Something none of us would have predicted by the time we got through Detroit. Nonetheless, he is indeed sitting 5th, closest behind him teammate Scott McLaughlin in 8th. After that, Joseph Newgarden. Had a terrible year, but sitting 12th, 5th, 8th, and 12th. Malukas is actually ahead of Newgarden. So, but overarching point here to close, Davey hitting the back of Palou at Detroit did indeed add some spice to the championship potential for this thing maybe being not exactly finished this early in the year, but I would just look at that as a mistake that anybody could make. Do not get me wrong. Power's done it. Every single driver on Penske has done this. Hit some, hell, McLaughlin nerfed Nolan Siegel out of the way. It wasn't intentional, obviously. So Davey hitting the back of the championship leader or anybody, it wasn't intentional. But I would just say that I have yet to see anything that says, oh yes, get Will Power out of that car at the end of the year and put anybody else in. Unless Alex Palou says he wants to go drive for Penske and can. I can't think of anybody in the field. Unless Kyle Kirkwood says, hey, somehow I'm leaving Andretti, although I've won 2 races this year with them and Penske's won none. But anyways, I can't think of anybody that should replace Will Power in that car next year. Only thing that would change that is if our guy Davey Malukas, Lil Dave, from Gateway and Road America and Mid-Ohio and Iowa and all the other races, goes on a really epic, consistent run inside the top 10 at every race. The consistency has been Davey's thing to improve. This is still an area. We haven't seen it yet. There are a lot of reasons why. New team, new everything, as I mentioned. But if I'm doing if I'm a Team Penske decision maker and I'm doing a impartial assessment, I would say willpower. Here is a 1-year contract extension with an option for another, or maybe an option for 2 more years. We want to hold on to you for 2026. Davey Malukas, Clarience Technologies, and whomever else. Let's do another year at Foyt, and maybe it's 2027. It's happening. We know it's going to happen at some point in time. Just haven't seen a single thing other than that magical run at Indianapolis to say Davey's ready to do this right now. Let's move on to our next question. Alec Christodoulou, how you doing? Alec says, do you think Santino Ferrucci can pull off a few wins this season? Says he was very close at Detroit. What are your thoughts? Well, I do. And I love the fact, penalty, post-race, technical inspection penalties aside, I love the fact that we indeed are talking about Santino Ferrucci, street course guy, right? This is where he made his IndyCar debut back in, 2017, 2018. On Belle Isle, but this guy made his debut street course racing in IndyCar. Done nothing but road and streets prior to that. Turns out he's phenomenal on ovals, which we know. But I love the fact that, hey, this guy was indeed the best among the greater Penske family on the day at their home race, one that Roger Penske Entertainment owns and promotes. So do I think they could win? Yes. I would say a short oval is probably where we're going to see that. But altogether, I would say yes. I will be surprised if that number 14 AJ Foyt Racing Chevy does not have 1 win before the end of the season. Feels like 2 would be a little bit greedy. But yeah, I think they can. I think he can. I love the fact that we're talking about this not in hopeful means, Alec, but yeah, this is now a thing that is possible. I don't know if the other team with a major technical alliance, that being Meyershank Racing, which is aligned with Ganassi, I don't know if I'm ready to say they're capable of winning a race this year, but I would say that on the Penske and Foyt side, yes, for sure. They do feel like they could get at least 1. Lynn, this MP is little Dave, the hero of the paddock after Detroit. Again, I guess folks love seeing the runaway championship leader knocked out. Serious question. What the heck is going on in Santa Clarita, that being the home where Honda Racing Corporation US is based? Says, I know Magic Mountain is there, but so is HRC. What is causing this magical season for Honda? Honda's now 7 for 7 this year, 7-0 split with wins. Looking at Chevy, and yeah, I was asking them the same question, Lynn, and the areas that they told me they really made progress in, reliability. It was a big area last year where there were a number of kerblamos and set them back quite a bit. They ended up winning the Drivers' Championship with Alex Palou, obviously, and Ganassi, but lost the Manufacturers' Championship. And they were simply outrun at some events. Just Chevy was straight up better, faster, you name it. But they also let themselves down quite a bit with a number of kerblamos. And so reliability is a big place where they have made improvements. We know Scott Dixon with that Ganassi team. He would probably disagree, knowing that he's already on his 5th engine. But for the most part, we haven't seen things in races where whomever it is from the Honda side is leading or second or whatever it is and let down by some sort of engine problem. So that's the first area. Because of that, they have been able to be far more competitive, have better finishes, not just Palou, not just Kirkwood, but really strong finishes across the majority of their best drivers. Other area, which is just obvious, but they've been pushed internally like mad to find the power deficit. Always been pretty good on torque, but find the power deficit. Find the fuel mileage improvements needed. Indy 500 being a place where obviously they had a huge year-to-year gain. So it's finding the obvious stuff. Want more power, want more reliability, want better fuel mileage, but both manufacturers seek those same improvements every year, all year, every year, especially during the off season. The key thing to be mindful of here, though, is we're like, what, year 13 of this engine formula? Like, there are all the needles in the haystacks of performance gains have, in theory, been found. And yet, Honda has found some more to bring themselves back into the game to go 7 for 7 this year. It is truly wild, isn't it? Never would have expected that. I believe mentioned here more than once, Scott McLaughlin, Team Penske, that number 3 Chevy. That was my preseason championship favorite, and seemingly everybody said the same thing when I was talking to them throughout the paddock. Hey, who do you think? What do you think the hot team, hot entry is going to be win the championship this year? Hands down. Of course, some folks said Palou just because he'd won the last one, the one before that, but everybody that I spoke with across a range of teams, you name it, all pointed to that number 3 Chevy. It is possible for that to still happen, although highly unlikely, but it is possible. But to see 0 wins by Arrow McLaren, the Foyt team we mentioned, but particularly Arrow McLaren and Team Penske, just the shocker of shockers, Lynn. So for the sake of good stories, I would love to see Chevy get in the game here with some wins. And, right, what I'm looking for at all times is compelling racing. Stuff where you go, those are some great storylines. Not, hey, look, they went 73 and whatever and won everything and just destroyed. Like, those years are cool. But, I don't know. I feel like it'd be great for a non-Ganassi, non-Andretti team to get in the game with a win among Honda camp, and it'd be great for anybody in the Team Chevy camp to get in with some wins and bring some more spice. Casey Kirkstra says, a tough week for the RLL cars in the pits. Were they able to determine what led to Louis Foster's suspension failure? Yep. And I'm getting to this. I wrote a story about it yesterday, Casey, but this is after I did that after you sent this in. So my apologies there. So the tub, the driver safety cell, basically from the dash bulkhead forward, where the steering wheel mounts, where everything mounts there, you have these large metal structures, large metal frames, the bulkheads, big structural pieces. And between them at the front of the tub and the dash one, you have some hard points where suspension's getting mounted. And so up front, you've got A-arms. The upper A-arms on the left and right mount to the tub, and the lower A-arms that mount to the tub. And at the outer ends of those A-arms, that's where the uprights, brakes, wheels, and tires mount. So the tub itself, where the A-arms connect, have geometry position options. You think of the front A-arms sitting perfectly level on the chassis. There are adjustments built into the tub, holes drilled into the tub, where you can raise the suspension A-arm, lower it a little bit so it's no longer flat, but it's different angles, changing the suspension geometry. You do that because suspension geometry changes really, really do influence the handling of the car. Anti-dive, anti-squat. If you're not into all this stuff, not a big deal, but just know that there is a range of mounting holes, up or down, for the A-arms bolting into the side of the tub. Effectively, the walls on the left and right of the driver's legs stuck down the front of the tub there. You can do one of two things. If you're bolting the suspension to the tub, you can use a plate on the back, and a washer and a nut, and tighten that down. Do that for the suspension brackets to the tub. That involves a lot of time to do that, because with how the tubs are made, and there aren't a bunch of like readily accessible access ports, you got to try and contort yourself. You got a wrench on the outside, a ratchet and a socket, and then try and get your arm inside to find that nut to hold with a wrench. This is just not something that is really super easy or feasible. You would have to probably pull the driver's seat out, get one of your skinnier mechanics to try and get in and get inside the car, and this becomes a two-person job to bolt, unbolt the suspension mounting brackets from outside the tub to move the A-arm up or down into a different hole for a geometry change. So because that's a pain and very time-consuming, what Dallara made, which is an optional thing to use, but I believe every team uses them, is a bracket that bolts to the inside of the tub and has captured nuts, welded nuts, that the bolts from the outside, holding the suspension A-arm bracket, can go straight through and be tightened or loosened and removed by a single mechanic. So instead of trying to have someone, if you've ever had to do this working on your car, get a buddy of yours to crawl under and hold a wrench on something as you tighten it from above or whatever, this is the same kind of thing. Not a one-person job, and it would be very time-consuming without the brackets machined by Dallara that bolt to the inside of the tub, that have captured nuts that allow you to just basically move the suspension A-arm leg up or down, stab the bolt through, and tighten it into that captured nut. This is what failed. So if we're looking positionally, I am told it was the right front corner. We know that. But the lower A-arm on the right front and the front leg of it, so all the way forward. From what I have seen and been informed of, the welded nut on that bracket broke away and allowed this to no longer be a tightened sandwich of the outer bracket to the inner bracket into that captured K-nut, welded K-nut. And with the welding breaking, whatever it might have been that caused that, you all of a sudden had something that was rattling around and loose and ultimately ripped away, which caused that to happen. So the captured welded K-nuts on the brackets supplied by Dallara, those are used by effectively everybody, especially in road and street course racing, where making geometry adjustments is something that is on the to-do list quite often by race engineers, and you want to be able to do that very quickly. This is something you can do in minutes on pit lane with that captured welded K-nut on the back of the bracket supplied by Dallara. Otherwise, you'd be down for maybe the entire session trying to make that same change. So that is what failed. Dallara put out a bulletin saying, hey, everybody, inspect them for cracks, aging, fatiguing, anything. Called around to 4 teams. One of them told me, they didn't say we didn't bother inspecting. I'm sure they will, but they said we just went straight to replacing all of them with brand new brackets on our cars. We didn't bother looking at them and then deciding whether we should or shouldn't replace this one or that. Just straight brand new across all of our cars. others that I spoke with, none of them said they were just going to replace all immediately. The other three said we're going to or have already taken them off, and we're doing a case-by-case look and deciding what continues and what gets replaced altogether. So believe this was a first. Don't recall this happening before. Heard some really interesting thoughts from some crew chiefs and team principals about these brackets and the quality of the quality assurance that went in up front, and maybe the quality control in the back end. Listened with great interest, hearing one crew chief, championship winning crew chief, tell me about how they tell their crew members, their mechanics, take your time installing these pieces. You can get it wrong. Things might not be perfectly flush, could potentially work loose a little bit. A known item that demands attention and effort to get absolutely right with the installation. So interesting how things like this, Casey, reveal little things I didn't know for sure. Jose Javier Hernandez, you're asking about Louis Foster's crash and wondering if him accidentally hitting Felix Rosenqvist may have saved his life. Hard to say there, right? But I can tell you, if he had had that suspension failure where he did, top speed, 180-ish miles an hour, and there was nothing in front of him to hit and slow down, I mean, it would have been something that was scary, way more scary than it already was. Glancing off the wall, assume that took some energy away, but if it weren't for Felix's car, having seen how heavily he went into the tire barriers after hitting Felix to reduce his speed and how much speed was still left. Main thing that I had someone in the paddock mention, very smart, and I hadn't thought of it beforehand, was I do wonder if that section ends up having a lot more tire barriers put in front of anything hard, knowing that if it weren't for the objects in front of Louis that he hit, the potential of doing 180 miles an hour straight into that barrier. I don't know what the mile per hour was, whether it was reduced to 120, 104. Again, I don't know what it was. We just know it was reduced a bit. But to your point, Jose, that's one of those worst fear type things where you realize that, yeah, it appears that got lucky that there was no significant damage to Felix, hurt his knee, texted him shortly after, said, it hurts, but I'm going to be okay. I'll be back in the car, no problem. And Louis was able to walk away. Granted, Louis's chassis is destroyed, so there's that. And the Meyer-Shank team told me they expect the rebuild for Fro's car is going to be about $250,000. But money aside, yeah, my assumption, I'll try to remember to ask next time I see Bud Denker or Michael Montry, the two folks in charge of that event for Penske Entertainment. Hey, what do you think we might do if we were to have the same kind of thing happen, but nothing slowed down that 180 mile an hour vehicle before it got to whatever soft then hard things waiting for it at the end. Aries Images. What was IndyCar's reaction to the Power and Kirkwood incident? No penalty was issued, but was there any direct response to Will's arguably inappropriate, potentially dangerous use of the chrome horn? Couldn't find a thing. I'm going to keep this one super short because we could burn the rest of the episode on it. So if you happen to catch start of practice Friday at Detroit, the very first thing that happened in terms of any kind of intervention from race control was a drive-through penalty for Scott Dixon. Have the rule with that unique side-by-side pit lane where those on the left side, those on the right side cannot touch that blue divider right down the middle. Dixon coming out of his pit box, again, to start practice. I don't know what the amount was, but it felt like it was 2 inches, 3 inches maybe. He got his rear, I think right rear tire over the blue line. It wasn't half a tire. It was a tiniest of tiny margins. And boom, drive through. Didn't affect him in any way. I totally get that. But you just ran over an arbitrary blue line where there was no danger, no other cars you could hit, nothing whatsoever. Boom! Get your ass back on pit lane. But hey, you want to play wheelbarrow up your buddy's backside here and lift the back of his car? What was that, 200 feet? I'm guessing 150, 200 feet between turns. Those wacky kids, ha 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 ha. Like, it's the consistency. That's the part that blows the mind. Scott Dixon, 3 inches over the blue line, no risk to anyone at all when it happened. Boom, we see that penalty, get your ass on pit lane. Will Power, to be honest, and again, I'm not making light of this or taking anything off of Will, but any driver doing that, you would think, hey, that's really not appropriate. Beyond the danger side, thankfully, neither driver crashed or got hurt, but there was damage done to the back of Kirkwood's car. This thing cost Andretti Global time and money. Repairs were needed for no dang reason. And what do? Swallow the whistle. So I don't know. Maybe drivers need to paint a blue line on the back of their cars. And maybe if the similar thing happens again, race control will feel the need to act. But this is just one of those things where you go, race technical inspection. Hey, Prema, your left front wing end plate is low by a millimeter, whatever it is. Hey, Santino Ferrucci, your driver ballast is off, right? Your car is not underweight. Your car is actually overweight, but you didn't have the amount of driver ballast in the place that it should have been. And here's monetary $25,000 and points and right. Hey, Prema, back up. Okay, I got it. So we are calling razor thin balls and strikes here. But dude, just drive up the backside of somebody and ha ha he he and it's all good. But that blue line. Just count me among many sports fans who in whatever game that I'm watching is just wanting consistency. Hey, if that's a holding foul on this play, cool. And it happens again 10 minutes later when the other team has the ball or whatever. Cool. Just call the same holding foul. So we're good. And you can't say you didn't see it because good Lord, everybody saw this. So the hope, we still don't know how this is going to come together and exactly what it's going to look like. But that independent governance oversight board, panel, whatever it is, I'm just hoping consistency is the major gain that comes from this. I know its formation is inspired by, driven by separation of church and state, any concerns over conflicts of interest with Penske Entertainment, owning everything and paying I totally get that. I'll admit I give less of a fart about that side with the creation of this board. I just want to see them go, hey, we're consistently calling this a strike. This is consistently a ball. Awesome. I think everybody then goes, cool. This is level. We're good. Why don't we go to Jimmy Ducks? Says, while we all agree that, quote, hate is good. We don't agree that. All agree, but okay. Is the current brand of social media come at me, bro, style of beef we've seen lately a good look for IndyCar? Mentions the Scott McLaughlin Tony Kanaan exchange in Detroit was pure cringe. Yeah, Jimmy, I've never been a believer of the hate is good thing. I do believe it is good sometimes, but I don't believe it's always good. This is just weird. And I admittedly didn't notice it until after it happened. Feel like I've mentioned this way too many times on the show, but while I follow many people on social media, I don't do a lot of looking through people's posts. So however I found it, or it landed, I learned about it after it was taken place. For those who weren't aware, I'm sure you do if you care, and if you don't know, you probably don't. McLaughlin, as mentioned, nerfed, crashed out Nolan Siegel somewhat early in the Detroit race. Again, McLaughlin is not a dirty driver. From my entire knowledge of him, I've never known him to be that guy. I'm not saying he isn't a hard-edged racer, but being the guy to take people out and do dickish things, I just have never known him to be that guy. There'd be no reason for him to crash Nolan Siegel out of the race. Why is that? At their respective stages of their careers, Nolan is a nobody and has achieved nothing. And I love the kid, so I'm not saying this in any kind of cruel or mean way. I'm just saying that while he has shown tons of potential, and I think is going to be a really amazing IndyCar driver, for where they were at last weekend at Detroit, Scott McLaughlin, top-tier IndyCar star, one of its best, race winner over and over again, poles, you name it, guy who's a badass, top of his game. Nolan, still kind of sort of a rookie with everything to learn. It'd be one thing if this was McLaughlin and Palou going for position, and McLaughlin decided, hey, I'm going to give him the business. I don't think he would, but at least you'd go, yeah, winner, another winner, two front runners going at it, and hey, they got tangled up, someone made a mistake, got it. No one would be happy, everyone would be grumpy, but at least you'd go, yes, front-running contender versus front-running contender. This wasn't the case here. Now, a year from now, 2 years from now, I would expect Nolan to be in that position where he is challenging, giving a real fit to the Scott McLaughlins. I think the kid has the potential to become that guy. But that's not what happened here. So, knowing all that, totally understand Tony Kanaan, who's effectively Nolan's day-to-day dad, while Nolan's real father, Mark, and mom are back home here, looking out right across where they live in the Bay Area. Like, Nolan, that's Tony's kid. He looks after him. That is his project driver. So I totally get Tony going after McLaughlin a bit for this from a protective standpoint. But maybe this is where my disconnect comes in. Social media. If I have had a real problem with somebody, even if they have decided to mouth off or pop off on social media, which has happened in the last few years, you haven't seen me go back at the person on social media, because social media isn't real. It isn't real. This is something where you walk straight up to that person. If you are maybe someone who's a little bit older, and does not consider social media an acceptable place to get after each other and have beef. So McLaughlin crashes out Siegel. I have no question that it was totally unintentional. Tony hopping on social media, giving McLaughlin heat, McLaughlin firing back. I think Tony firing back after that. A dig at trying to find team principal, Scott's team principal, but wasn't there. Oops, kind of thing. Making light of Tim Cindric being fired and others being fired. It's just not what I would expect. I don't know how else to say it. It just seemed to go from unnecessary to completely dickish to I don't think this is a good look. Where the hate is good part comes in, it's when it is Nolan Siegel versus Scott McLaughlin. Granted, Nolan tends not to be that kid, I believe, on social, but what are the things that folks care about that they've at least demonstrated if they're going to get plugged into this kind of stuff and follow along and take sides? It's team principal versus team principal / owner. It's Zach Brown crapping on Christian Horner in F1 or vice versa, or Horner going again. It's that top tier, like, ooh, all right, well, look, we got CEO beef. Cool. Or it's drivers, right? It's George Russell getting after Verstappen after the hit last weekend and back and forth there. This is where you get tribes activated. This is where big fans of Max are like, no, F you, it's no big deal. And for George and Mercedes and everyone else saying, no, that's totally wrong. I get that. To me, that stokes flames of passion within a fan base. The team principal for Aaron McLaren getting into beef with a driver from Team Penske, even though Tony's, by comparison, way more famous, achieved way more, blah, blah, blah. Like, cool, but like you're retired, but you're going after him, kind of like maybe instead of your driver doing that, but maybe your driver should if we really wanted to. It just felt off. So I don't know why there was a desire to do that. Hopefully it's quieted down. I don't think it makes anything look good. I totally agree with you that it was a bit cringe. And yeah, just as we saw the smallest, shortest active driver in IndyCar being Santino Ferrucci go straight after good old Kirk Kirkwood last year after, what was that, free practice 1. And Kirk's not exactly like, super tall or big, but he's got 3, 4, 5, whatever. He's noticeably bigger than Santino. What did we get there? Santino walking straight over to, or coming to him, balls of fire, pushing him, dog walking him a bit. And it was like, oh, okay, we got something here. Whether you love or hate either one of them, it's at least among the right people. This, in theory, once that checkered flag waved, Tony could have gone straight over to McLaughlin. And granted, you want to talk about a height disparity. Yeah, I think McLaughlin's 6'1" or so. I mean, he's between himself and Graham Rahal, the two biggest guys in IndyCar. Tony probably might even be smaller than Ferrucci, but that's the thing I would expect, especially from one elder statesman. It's not as if Scott's been here for a long time, but he's old enough to where, yeah, do it in person. Get on the phone. You can MF each other the whole time. We'll just go with your assessment here of it was pure cringe. Chris Wright, how does tech treat broken parts such as Kirkwood's broken wing when it comes to post-race tech? It doesn't. So I had a number of folks asking about this, and again, I just realized that with race tech being such a big and constant point lately that maybe this is just not something that was fully aware, but there's no expectation for Kyle's left front, right front, whichever part of his broken car to meet the standard post-race tech measurements. This is a case where at speed, in particular with a lot of downforce, I mean, it's being pulled down onto the ground. End plate is getting shaved away on the track surface. Not saying that downforce isn't being produced, but saying that it is by no means the high quality, most perfect downforce that could be created. So in a situation like this, there's no expectation for it to meet heights and angles and whichever, because it's broken and performing below the quality that it should. So this is not something that provided him with an advantage. It was actually a disadvantage. And it's the broken thing continued, but operating substandard doesn't become subject to that. John Bailey, as we try and hit the throttle here and get through a couple more, you say kind things up front, which is sweet of you. Is this the new IndyCar that we must get accustomed to? Everybody waiting bated breath for the infractions to be announced so we can see if our favorite driver moved up or down in the order. Yeah, we have indeed. May 18, pole day at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the year 2025. This was indeed birthday for the new F Around and Find Out IndyCar race technical inspection. May 18, 2025, it is the FAFO birthday for IndyCar Tech. Don't have an answer why. Don't know why this specific day is the one where the head of tech, IndyCar's technical director, Kevin Rocket Blanche, decided to hit the alarm button on the illegally modified attenuators on those two Penske cars, but that is what happened. Know that we've discussed that already, but really and truly, that is the day where, holy cow, a long-standing Penske Entertainment employee decided it was time to report Team Penske. Okay, got it. Other thing here, we've seen this now get super tightened up. Is it a result of the questions and criticisms of why May 18 instead of May 17, 16, 15? These are on the cars all week. They were on those two cars at the April Indy Open test, April 23, 24. We know that at least on Joseph's car, and I've seen photos from fans sent from 2024 Indy 500 of the attenuators outside of the Penske garages and gasoline alley. Hey, yep, those appear to be modified as well. Scott McLaughlin's too. Why now? I think, John, again, this is a purely human assumption, but I would say since this has everything that appears to be the look and feel of an arbitrary date and time to do this when it could have been done beforehand, and then all the criticism, I certainly was responsible for that criticism as well, saying, why now? Why not before? This could have been done any time. What are you looking for? Why wasn't this called earlier? A human response to that would be, well, then let's show you. And we are not letting anything pass. Ultimately, I keep referring to this as policing, John, right? This is ultimately a decision made by human beings as to how hard they do or do not want to police. Easiest thing I can equate this to, John, and I'll just keep doing this because I think it makes the most sense. If you've ever been pulled over for doing 10 or 15 miles an hour over the speed limit, no one likes getting pulled over, but at least you go, okay, yeah, I wasn't even trying to adhere to the rules. If you've ever been pulled over for doing 27 or 28 in a 25 mile an hour zone, I remember going to get credentials for the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Felt like it was maybe about 10 years ago, and I noticed that a young reporter that I knew just happened to see he was in the car in front of me as we turned on to whatever the name of the road is to get it at the little credentials office. But right before the credential office is a school. I think it's a grade school. And mile per hour, whatever it is, normally 40 or something like that, in that zone drops down to, I think, 25. And it's just a crawl, and it's painful because you're near the racetrack. You're going to get your racing credentials. You're zoom minded, but it's like, and you basically got to hit the brakes and just crawl. And the journalist in front of me, I won't mention their name, Tony DeCino. I don't remember what he was doing, but I just remember the little sign on the right that basically says school zone, 25 mile an hour, and came right down to that again, I think 25 mile an hour. And Tony was not like flying by any means. I don't know what the exact number was, but it, might have been 27 or 28. And whoop, sirens fire off. Patrol car jumps in between us and directs Tony into the next lot and gives him a ticket for, again, like 3 miles an hour over. And totally get the reason. School zone, it was morning time, kids going to school and all. So really not the time to play with that limit at all. But I think of that exact thing, John, of like, hey, you're out there cruising around on the highway and it says 65 and everyone's doing 75 and you decide to do 80 and you get popped. You go, well, dang it, everyone else is speeding. Yeah, but you decided to go even farther. So there was about a 10 mile an hour limit grace period there, speed there for you to use, and you decided to go even beyond that. Well, boom, penalty for you. Here, more or less no wiggle room at all. Those are decisions, policing decisions, how hard to call things. It felt like before that FAFO birthday, a little more that 75, 80 mile an hour thing. Afterwards, I don't even know if we're talking doing 27 or 28 and a 25. It feels like doing 25 and a half in a 25 will get you popped now. These are decisions made by people. So it has nothing to do with competence. The referees aren't blind in technical inspection. None of those things. These are all really good people. Decision, though, appears to have changed of how tightly this is going to be called. And so I think back to your point, it is something that everyone in the paddock for sure must get accustomed to. Do I think we might see one or two more of these? Yeah. Do I really hope this does not become the, well, we are going to say that so-and-so won the race, and this was who did spray the champagne on the podium, but check back tomorrow or maybe the day after to find out if they need to hand off the empty bottles and the trophies to someone else. Ultimately, it's on the teams to adjust and comply with whatever level that race tech is demonstrating on their inspection process. At the same time, if it continues to be this very hard-edged 25.0 is the speed limit and 25.1 is going to get you a pretty serious ticket, if that's what it ends up being and these things continue to happen, you then have to ask yourself, are they policing too hard? Is there a standard where you go, nobody can meet this level of stringent inspection? The variance in parts production, they're not all the same. Not everything is identical. Could a team get popped for something that they simply did not do, but the tolerance on the brand new part that they have on the car from whichever spec vendor is not in compliance? These things are all possible. So absolutely in a interesting zone here where we're going to do 2 races again in 2 weekends in a row. We just came off of back-to-back race weekends, significant post-race penalties at the first with the 500, then with Santino's car after Detroit. We're going to do Gateway and then Road America. And I think, John, by the end of Road America, we should have a proper sample size to go, ooh, okay, this is the new standard. Let's see what comes out post-race tech. I can tell you as well, I'm usually busy and other reporters are usually busy writing or doing videos, doing whatever right after the race. I wonder if I need to go spend some time, maybe just bring my little laptop with me and park myself outside of tech and see if anybody ends up getting caught in that web and see what's going on. Tom Goolsby was love seeing Santino and Foyt do so well in Detroit. Disappointed to see them get caught for not having the correct driver ballast. I know being 10 pounds overweight in total doesn't seem to make them out for cheating too dramatically, but wouldn't being able to move the weight around in the chassis give a real advantage? I don't understand why the penalty seemed minor compared to what Prema faced at Indy. Again, super valid point, Tom. When I think of the Foyt penalty, I think of a procedural mistake. Hey, you should have had more driver ballast in place in that location. You didn't. The car itself, though, was not illegal from a minimum weight standpoint. So this, I believe, would have been received by most teams as an oops, not a, oh, okay, you went and ran the whole race with something in the car out of specification that could have contributed to a performance advantage. I can't think of any scenario where this is something that would have allowed Santino's car to be a second place performer, and had it been in perfect driver ballast spec that, oh, well, boy, you couldn't have run better than fourth or something. It just wasn't the case. I don't think the Prema clocking of their left front wing end plate being off, also resulting in, I believe, the leading edge of that end plate being too low, did anything for it performance-wise that would have made Callum run to 12th compared to, boy, without that, you're no better than 15th. I don't see this, nor have I heard from anybody in the paddock. Even teams that benefited from the penalty, moving them to the back of the field and all that stuff, that said, oh yeah, cheaters, boy, they intentionally tried to circumvent the rules there, felt very much in the similar procedural oops area. From their explanation between contact with the back of a car and a crew member standing on the end plate during a pit stop, that's likely what led to it compared to an actual assembly issue prior to the race. Nonetheless, I'm with you. This is a thing where I say, I wonder if the sending a hard message after Indy is where Prema got sent a really hard message, where their penalty seemed to be of a very different nature than that of Andretti Global with the 27 and the 28 car and the illegally modified energy management system covers. But they did indeed get the book thrown at them the same way. Then to have that changed radically to something that feels like it's in a similar vein, to me at least, of hey, car was not legal, right? That was an illegality, but okay. And for that to be, instead of $100,000, $25,000, instead of being moved to the back of the field, you get to stay in second place, but we're going to take away some points. And I don't know. If anything, the Prema feels like it should have gotten the Foyt level of penalty. So here we are again talking about consistency. Okay, I'm going to challenge myself to close the show here with getting through the questions that I'm looking at and to see if I can just rattle through them super fast. And I actually am not going to read the questions. I'm going to read the nice summary that our guy Jerry Sudduth puts together. Justice Thomas asking if friendly IndyCar culture diminishes the product, mentioning that Zach Brown saying that drivers going to each other's, I think, birthday parties or whatever, and it was just a way of expressing IndyCar drivers might be just too pal friendly, and that's not a good thing for the promotion of the sport. Was on that call, by the way, and heard that and kind of laughed and agreed. I'm with Zach. I love seeing that there's some real friendships here. Back in the day, for sure, AJ Foyt had the utmost respect for Dan Gurney and vice versa. They raced each other like hell, but they didn't MF each other outside the car. And Parnelli Jones is in there, is really close with AJ, as close as you can be, but deep-rooted respect being the thing between them that complemented their hardcore on-track battles. But that's different. Those are like Mount Rushmore titans, icons of the sport, all coexisting, tough racing on track, and then mutual respect off, but they're not exactly, again, showing up for bar mitzvahs and quinceañeras and whatever else. This does feel like, again, the biggest beef we got right now is Scott McLaughlin and retired race car driver Tony Kanaan. We know some drivers don't like each other and they snipe at each other a little bit, but nothing serious. So, yeah, I'd say culturally, Zach is onto something. If we use F1, everybody's really nice and everyone gets along well in IndyCar. It's cool, I guess. If you just like peace, then hey, IndyCar's your sport. But I don't know if that is the most compelling thing. Why? Pick your other favorite sport. Hey, it's this team versus that team in the Super Bowl or in the whatever, and you're rooting like hell for one team and against the other. And you want misery and failure for the other. And you might be having a great little Super Bowl party, and friends will come over and they're rooting for the other team and they got their jerseys on, and you got yours rooting for the other team, and you MF each other the whole time, and it's fun and playful, but there's passion behind that. That's what I see in F1. I think that's what Zach is referencing there. You see a little more of it in NASCAR, but maybe not as much. There's still a lot of just like super oatmeal personalities. But yeah, I totally agree. I would love for drivers to either be more honest about their thoughts about others. Also know that not every driver is making tons of money and feels like they're secure and just firing away, and that they'll have the support of their team or sponsors or otherwise to do that. It's a big difference when you're making crazy amounts of money and feel pretty much invincible. That is not the case for a lot of IndyCar drivers. Might have teams that are a little more conservative and don't care for that kind of thing. So, totally agree with Zach. Just say that it is harder, as I look at it, for a number of IndyCar drivers to do the same, be a little more aggressive with each other. But the willingness to push those boundaries is maybe the thing that I haven't seen that he's pointing out. And we'll see if that does indeed change at all here. Fernando Diaz asking where the races in the big markets, and mentioning that the future formula for the series needs to allow for more creativity. Agree in both. We're going to hopefully see at least one major new market added for next year. And I don't mean Arlington. That's already been announced going there. Now, granted, nobody would say Arlington, Texas is a major market, but knowing that we're talking about Cowboys Stadium, Texas Rangers Stadium, the promotions behind it, this should be really good and really, hopefully, powerful, positive for IndyCar. Should be one more as well that gets added that has the potential to do that for sure. Mentioning that you'd like to see full electric mode, leaving the pits, coming in, coming out. Want to see some creativity with types of engines, V6s, V8s, twin turbos, non, etc. I'm with you. I'd love to see that. It just isn't what's happening, unfortunately, with the next car. Adam Joseph, you're wondering if Mid-Ohio loses its IndyCar date if Honda leaves the series. I don't believe so. That event, the track itself, is owned by IndyCar's biggest non-IndyCar promoter. IndyCar itself promotes quite a few events, right? Now owns Long Beach, obviously does the Indy Grand Prix and the Indy 500, Detroit Grand Prix as well. Centrally involved in Iowa. It's now taken a promotions role at Nashville. It's promoting a lot of its races now, which is cool. I think that's a really good thing. The other largest is Green Savory Race Promotions between Toronto, between St. Petersburg, and so on. Portland, they own Mid-Ohio. It's not just something that they own the promotions for an IndyCar event there. They own the actual track. So knowing how big and important Green Savory Race Promotions happens to be for IndyCar, again, I believe all totaled 4 of the 17 races. If I'm forgetting one, I apologize. whether Honda, with their home state manufacturing in Ohio there and event sponsorship, were to go away. Hate to see that, but I would also say, knowing that Mid-Ohio tends to have really good crowds and is kind of a traditional home for IndyCar events, I would not think Honda's ongoing participation as an engine supplier would or would not influence whether IndyCar's, call it, biggest external promoter is able to continue having a race at the one track it truly owns. Luke Entrup wondering, does the latest Penske scandal impact Honda's renewal? No, I don't believe so, simply because the first one is what really triggered, as I understand, the desire, need, and call for this independent governing board to take decision-making and race control and race tech and operationally and whatnot out of Penske's hands, make this a non-conflict zone. So would say that although it happened again, which wasn't great for them, meaning Honda, things have been in motion to try and safeguard against things like this in the future and any question about how it's handled. So I think that's pretty important. Then on the costs and cost reduction side, with what's coming, I believe there's a lot of good progress happening there as well, Luke. So I would say no. If the decision to leave is made, I would say those reasons were solidified well before what happened here in May. Ed Joris wondering if a BB will be leading the new race control in this future governance thing. Talking about, could we get Brian Barnhart back? Bo Barfield, who left and has been IMSA's race director for a long time. He's wondering, anyone else with the initials BB? Yes, Bilbo Baggins will indeed be the new race director for IndyCar under this governance board. Pat O'Date, how you doing, Pat? You say, do we think the new car is going to be lighter than the current? Do not. Now, are we talking 10 pounds lighter, 20 pounds lighter? Very possible. And who knows? It could be a little bit more. When I ask and when I speak to really smart people who I think would know, I keep hearing that no significant weight loss is expected. So small diet improvement, of course, that's possible. The taking 50 to 100 pounds out of the thing, that's been the goal. 100 pounds was the initial goal. I've heard nothing to suggest that anything close to that will be happening. Hickory Hound, you ask, has the series considered making cars smaller? Not that I know of, and you say that, or your thinking is, if they're shorter and narrower, the raceability would be better. We've had amazing raceability with this car, with its predecessors that were sometimes longer or wider. So, I would not equate better racing to happening because a car would be smaller. You look at the USF Championships cars, and many of them are tiny by comparison, but that doesn't mean that they automatically put on better racing. So, no, haven't heard anything about that. Corey Johnson asking if the series really needs Honda. I'd say yes. And we'll close on this real quick. So let's say Honda is the one that is locked in and guaranteed, saying we're going to be here for years, forever, we're never going away, and it's Chevy. I think taking the name, or I shouldn't say the name, but removing the brand from being the central point, but just the idea of losing one of the two remaining engine suppliers. Let's say Honda's all in and Chevy is the one that is going to decide to go away. Does IndyCar really need Chevy? Yes. So beyond the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix and the other things that Chevy sponsors and supports, they also support teams. You go, well, hey, wait a minute, I thought this was supposed to be truly independent. Well, I get that. Hey, if we're going to go do straight line testing or wind tunnel, or going to go do, hey, we're developing a new energy recovery system, decisions get made for which of those teams within their support network get the nod, right? It was Team Penske and Arrow McLaren that effectively did all the hybrid testing for them. Honda the same with Ganassi and Andretti, I believe. Support and extra provisioning of things. That does help certain teams in the paddock. So, hey, let's say Chevy's going away. So we lose some event sponsorships. We lose some of that really critical support for teams. But most importantly, we lose one of the two manufacturers providing engines for approximately half the grid. Okay, so what happens there? Well, with Chevy gone, Ilmor gone, that means, assuming Honda would agree to do this, they would now need to supply all 27 cars. Got it. At that point, what value is Honda getting from being involved? Well, financial. They'd have to change the pricing structure for the leases unless there was a big change in technology for the cars. If IndyCar were to lose one of its two manufacturers, would it need to remain hybrid? Potentially, if the lone remaining manufacturer said this is critical for us. From a marketing and promotion standpoint, tech relevance, we sell a lot of road cars that have this technology. Even if we're a spec series now with a spec engine from us, whether it says Chevy on it or Honda, we need to have that hybrid. Okay, that's possible. Also, potentially, that hybrid could go away. Because if all the cars are spec and a Honda is just supplying the full field, and we're back to the old single supply days where Honda did do this to close out the 2000s and into or through 2021, they did it. So it's kind of them, but they didn't get much in the way of marketing value out of it. Engines weren't exactly crazy, raging horsepower machines. And they were there. They took care of IndyCar. They were the one remaining partner that decided to facilitate that. Didn't exactly help the series grow in any way, shape, or form because there was just one. So if I'm looking at dominoes, whether it's Chevy or Honda, you lose event sponsorships. You lose the help that teams, some of those teams, benefit financially. You talk about simulator days. Both brands have their own driver in the loop simulator where it's not just the biggest and best teams that get drivers going in there, getting time to prepare for an event. It's some of the smaller teams as well. So you take that off the map. It's another area where things do not get better. And then you have one brand left supplying the full field, now probably no longer receiving the same kind of marketing and promotion benefits they wanted. It's hard to say, hey, we won the Indy 500. And you go, well, of course you did. Right? It's the same reason you don't see victory ads from Firestone. Hey, you're the one and only official supplier. We thank you, appreciate you, but right. So you take that away. You look at costs. So one of two things need to happen. The motors need to be detuned and dumbed down. So instead of paying for a expensive engine lease where you get 4 of them per year, maybe it's 2. Power would have to come down. Revs would have to come down in order to make the cost stay in the same range. If there's no subsidization, sorry, my face is fighting me. If there's no infusion of money from the manufacturer to offset the losses for every lease they sign, and that's what they currently have, both sides. Every lease they sign comes at a loss. Hundreds of thousands of dollars per lease loss. Is a single supplier, Chevy or Honda, going to be willing to take that loss? I doubt it. That'd be a hard one to get past their chief marketing officer, chief financial officer. So if you want to stay at the same level of power and everything else, what do those leases cost? Now they're $1.6 million a year. I see those going to $2 million at least, maybe 2.2. So teams are having to eat that. That's not great. The other option is, again, we dumb these engines down, slower turning speeds, lower power, lower torque, improve reliability. That way we only need 2 for a season, maybe 3. Maybe that's how we keep it at 1.6. But then you get less compelling Indy cars. This is just where if we lose one of the two, things do not become good. And the last item here is series angle. IndyCar's been on the rise, right? Took a little while, but Penske Entertainment has really been ramping things up over the last year. A lot of things getting better, a lot of decisions being made, a lot of improvements. Again, far distance from being where we want it to be, but without a doubt, Penske Entertainment